the burning smoke. So that would have been in Mamre. And so here he leaves what has been kind of like a respite for him, and he goes southeast to this place called Gerar. Now, we don't know why, what motivated. Maybe his flocks had eaten the grass and they needed new food. Maybe the season of the year, they couldn't get food at, grass. I don't know, because that's the hill country. I'm not sure how that works, but he moves southeast and he comes to this place, and he decides to fall back on an old lie that he likes to use. And he and Sarah again decide that they're going to lie about their relationship. They're going to lie about the fact that she is his wife. Now, they tell a white lie, right? Because technically, she is a sister. But they're saying only that information to mislead. It's a purposeful. They didn't tell the whole lie. They just told a half lie. The problem is their motive was a lie. The problem wasn't that their motive was that they were being dishonest. It was that their heart was dishonest. They knew what Abimelech would think if they said, "She is my sister." Because you don't marry your sister. Even in that time, it wasn't common. So, a stepsister, though we know because of this passage. So, they come to this land, and Abraham, again, is afraid he's going to die because of Sarah. Now, something to remember is Sarah is pregnant. A lot of people forget this. So he sends his, depending on, she must not be really pregnant or they would have noticed. And they'd be like, she's not your sister. But she's got to be pregnant because it's the next chapter, she has Isaac. So he sends his pregnant wife, or he says, my pregnant wife is my sister, and allows her to be taken, essentially kidnapped. Now, all of us guys are like, we would never do that. Well, it's easy to judge Abraham, right? Because we don't live in that time. I'm not saying that I would do that to my wife, but I can't sit back and say, I would never do that, because I'm not Abraham. I've not lived in his time. And now we all have specific sins we have to fight especially hard. Apparently his is sending Sarah to other men's houses. But no, it's actually fear. He is fearful of Abimelech, just like he was fearful of Pharaoh. He was afraid that if he said that she was his wife, that Abimelech would kill him. Abraham had more fear of Abimelech than he had of God. It's interesting, in this whole passage, I want us to look at these things in order. First, the fear that we see. First, Abraham is actually demonstrating a worldly perspective to God. He is actually showing the worldly perspective. Abimelech actually shows what Christians and followers of God should do. Because, look at here. Because he feared her, he was fearful. Abraham, it says in verse 11, because I thought surely there is no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. So, what's his problem? He's fearful of them and not God. And it's really interesting. This episode or this incident happens right before God brings the promised Isaac. Right before. Like it is the next note. Isaac is born. Genesis 21. Isn't it interesting that oftentimes God sends tests right before the blessing comes? Through a valley, really. and he's about to be on the mountaintop. He's about to experience the promise of God, and God preserves Abraham. He really does. Abraham was getting himself and Sarah into trouble. What if God hadn't prevented Abimelech? Then whose child would that be? There could be confusion. I mean, other than the sin of adultery. But that whole thing is caused by fear. Fear of man over fear of God. Look at the difference between Abraham here in verse 11 and Abimelech's response. So God confronts Abimelech, verse 3, in a dream of the night, and said to him, Behold, you are a dead man, because the woman you have taken, for she is married. This is wrong. You know what's interesting? Adultery isn't addressed until this passage in Genesis. In the story with Pharaoh, Pharaoh saw